I'm Linda Deer. Welcome to Linda's Weekly Guided Insights, a weekly gift of guidance from my spirit guides on navigating you through the uncertain world you are now living in, published every Tuesday since 2014. In this episode, the guides will be talking about fear happens when you forget who you are. So, Ray, what do you have for me?
Well, I saw that this week's takeaway was you'll see how fear is ripping you off. Just exactly how does fear rip us off?
All right, that's a good question. That's the whole point. Here's the unfortunate part of fear. In our time frame, in the world that we live in now, all at the same time, at this particular time, you were raised on fear. You don't even realize you were raised on fear, which makes this even more difficult to overcome and to break through and to see it when it's happening. Okay? So fear happens when you forget who you are. So what does forget who you are means? I mean, you thought you always knew who you were, right? Do you? Do you ever doubt yourself? Do you ever wonder if somebody else is right and you should maybe, reconsider what you had in mind and pull back and maybe go that way because you doubt yourself? When that happens, you just became small. Do you see how this lines up with how you were programmed to be fearful from the time you got here? After all, you came in real small, didn't you? No, you didn't. You didn't come in small. You came in big. You came in, when you came here, you couldn't wait to get here, to do what you came here to do. You had no fear. You weren't born with fear. It was programmed into you from the people in this world before you got here. The new person who came here, you, that little baby, it came in wide-eyed. It came in trusting and loving. It didn't understand fear at all until the first time you experienced it from this world, from someone who was already here before you. Your reaction to that was to go into fear. Whatever they told you, no. Or whatever they wanted you to do and manipulated you into doing it. Okay? An ultimatum. You were given some kind of ultimatum or whatever it happened to be. That's when you first experienced fear from where you came from, which there is no fear from where you came from. It's only in this world that you experience fear. And at that point, you made a decision. It was a knee-jerk reaction. And that's where fear started in your life. It started to run your life. So this thing about fear has been going on so naturally, so what feels like so normally. And fear is at an all-time high now. Can you believe it got this big in everybody's life? How did that happen? It's because you let it slide. You compromised. You let it go. You got small. You followed instructions. You didn't want to get in trouble. That's how it happened. You wanted to play. You didn't want to look at the things that were going on here. It was too hurtful. You couldn't stand it. So you found yourself alone, playing in the sandbox. You found yourself having this conversation with someone when no one was there. You were scared. You were too fearful to talk to anybody in this world about how you were feeling. Okay, so fear happens when you forget who you are. And it eats away at who you are from the time you got here, throughout your childhood, into early adulthood, to where you are right now. It's been etching away at you, etching away at you, etching away at you, so you could swallow more fear. You were programmed to live a life of fear, and you don't even remember it. It feels normal. That's how dominant fear has become in this world. It's how you're controlled. Okay. So how do you beat this fear thing? How do you break out of this fear thing? And what comes next? The way you break out of it is you've got to catch it when it shows up the next time. You can beat this thing called fear. It's a big fat lie. Fear is a lie, and love is the truth. You came from love into a world of fear, causing this part of you to retreat. You have to calm yourself down. You have to start writing down. These are my journals. This is my flagship book. If you haven't read Guided yet or listened to Guided, you want to start here. This is how I learned it, because I had my guides by my side all the way through, pointing it out to me. Stop taking things personally. That's another place where fear just grabs onto you. So you need to start writing in your journal every day for 15 minutes. Whenever fear comes up, that takes priority over everything else you'd write in your journal first. Until you get fear under control, you're not present. You're not here. You're small. Or you're hiding completely, okay? So you can't be who you are. If you aren't who you are, then what's the point? What's the point in anything? That's what you need to get a hold of first. That's what you need to get control of first, is recognizing fear when it's being imposed on you. And the only way you can do it, the only way, because it has too much power over you. You've been programmed with this since you were a little baby, is to start documenting every time you spot fear hit you. Okay, that's fear. That's fear. I know that's fear. And this is what it was. Here's what caused me to feel the fear. That's the first thing you write down. Write down what that was. And as soon as you write that down, take a breath. Now, the next question in the journal is, how did that make you feel? And you have to really write out the details of how that makes you feel. It'll go way back to that early feeling you had when you first came here and experienced your first fear. It'll have so much in common, today's fear, with that early fear. You won't believe it until you start writing it down. Then when you answered the second question about how it made you feel, only then, once you really flesh that out, will you have a realization about this fear that's controlled your whole life. You guys, when you really start paying attention to this and writing this down, every time you become aware that you just took on a whole new dose of fear in this life. Until you start writing it down, you will not harness the love. You can't have the love. You're too consumed with fear. Fear won't let you have it, because fear's a big liar. And love is the only truth there is. So you've got to get through the fear. You've got to start documenting your steps. You've got to start seeing it on the pages, and then going back and reviewing what you wrote day after day, just 15 minutes a day, to catch what scared you that day. Was it the news? Was it something you saw on the internet? Was it something somebody said to you? Did someone threaten you? Did you feel alone? It's something like that. So you need to start documenting this. It's the only way that you're going to find out who you are, because Fear happens when you forget who you are. And it wants you to forget who you are. That's the whole point and why it was imposed on you when you first came here, is to get you to comply. You were not had you were not important. You did not, there was nothing there for you. It was the people in this world, something was going on in this world that wanted you to comply with what they thought was right for you. Okay. So that's where how you're gonna learn this. This is how you're going to break through it. Read guided first. You really have to do it, because I was hit with a whole host of fears at the beginning of my life. Incredible fear. And because I had this connection to the guides, and I started journal writing at 7 years old. It was the only way I could make sense of what was going on here in this life, in this world. So I could see through all this. And I had a record of what happened that made me strong. It brought my free will into play. I finally existed. Okay, so that's what you want to do. Okay, so we're going to close this up today with a closing message from the guides about how fear happens when you forget who you are. But before we start, share what I do with your like-minded friends if my work has made a difference in your life. And the guides and I love your comments, so keep them coming. Okay? All right. So the guides are going to close the session about fear happens when you forget who you are. And here they go.
How do you keep fear out of your life? You must be on the lookout for doubt. Doubt starts a chain of reactions that lead to fear and bad decisions. The fear many times is that you will make the wrong decision. Once you realize that doubt has crept into your decision making, you must stop right there. Do not go any further. Write down what it is that you doubt and eliminate it before you make any decisions.
That's right. It's as simple as that. But what you need to do is learn to calm down just long enough to document what that was. You can go back and look at it a day from now and finish writing out how it made you feel, what you realized, and the action you're going to take. But write down what that fear was, that impulse was, immediately. Okay? All right. You are never alone. You have help and are always guided.